Welcome to Talkin' Transit, and I'm Zoe Mark. Today I'm going to do a variation on my theme where I'm going to do Tourist by Transit. This is where I get to a city and only get around the city by transit or by walking. Today I've chosen Tacoma, Washington because recently my wife and I went there by Amtrak and then only got around by walking and transit. So let's dive in. Welcome back. The purpose of my channel is to explore transit systems from around the world based on my personal experiences. So if this interests you, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit that notification bell so you know anytime a new video hits the feed. So let's talk about Tacoma, Washington. So everyone knows Seattle, Washington. They know about Portland. In the Pacific Northwest, people know you can get around Portland and Seattle and Vancouver, BC by transit. But did you know the smaller city of Tacoma is also transit friendly? At one point, Tacoma was looking to be the largest city in the Pacific Northwest with its natural harbor and its great railroad connections to the inland of the US, being the fact that it was the western end of the Northern Pacific Railroad. So let me start by why we went to Tacoma, Washington. We are big McMenamins Tripster fans. So McMenamins is a brew pub chain in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon and Washington, as far south as Roseburg and as far north as Mill Creek, Washington, then on the Oregon coast and as far east as in Bend, Oregon. In Tacoma is the Elks Temple. So what is a McMenamins Tripster? Well, that is, we get a passport and you get stamps at each location and you win prizes along the way with an ultimate goal of becoming a Tripster where you get 3 free nights at any McMenamins hotel, which there are several. My wife and I enjoy doing this as it's fun. McMenamins has historic buildings and very nice bars and pubs and hotels. Since we are Tripsters, we are actually working on our 5th passport, but based on previous passports, we still had some free hotel nights. So we chose to go to the Elks Temple, and we can get to Elks Temple very easily by Amtrak from our hometown in Salem. So several months ago, I made reservations for the free night at the Elks Temple, and then got Amtrak tickets to take us from Salem to Tacoma. So this will be a travelogue of how we got there and what there is to do in Tacoma. So we left our house early in the morning and for the very quick, less than 5-minute drive to the Salem train station. We got to the train station about 15-20 minutes prior to the train's scheduled arrival. Unlike an airport, you don't need to get an hour ahead of time. You don't need to go through security. You just have to make sure you have tickets in hand. We boarded Amtrak Cascades number 500, which arrived about 5 minutes late at about 6:45 in the morning. It was one of the Talgo trains, which is the European-inspired design trains that tilt as they go around curves. Its next stop along the way was Oregon City. After Oregon City, my wife and I got up and went to the cafe car to get some breakfast. That's the advantage also of a train. You can get up and walk around, unlike driving, which you'd have to stop and pull over to get some food. After purchasing our breakfast, we walked back to our seats and had a nice breakfast as we arrived at Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon is a 25-minute stop. Some people call it smoke break. Also, Portland is a major station on the line. I was able to actually get off the train and go into the station, kind of snap some pictures of around the station and around the neighborhood before we had to board the train to head back north. The train left Portland on time to head northbound. We got stopped a little bit just before crossing the Columbia River because the bridge was open, but that it was only a few minute delay before we pulled into Vancouver, Washington. From Vancouver, the next stop on the train is Kelso, Washington. After Kelso, the next stop is Centralia, Washington, and if you are a McMenamins person, the Olympic Club is just across the street from the Centralia train station. We did lose a little bit of time as we got to Olympia Lacey, but overall we were still running almost to schedule. Olympia is the state capital, although the station is not in Olympia, it's actually in Lacey. The next stop was ours, that's Tacoma, Washington. Last year, Amtrak changed the Tacoma, Washington station location. It used to be next to the train yards, but now it's been moved a little bit to the Sounder station at Tacoma Dome. What makes this nice is the fact that there's a streetcar right across the street from the Tacoma Dome station. We arrived about 10 minutes late in Tacoma, but that wasn't a really big deal. We weren't in a rush to get anywhere. After we got off the train, we made a pit stop at the station, then we walked across the street to ride the T line. This is Sound Transit's light rail line in Tacoma. It used to be called the Tacoma Link. We boarded the Tacoma Link, which took us to the Commerce Street station, which is the current end of the line. Prior trips, it went one stop closer to the Elks Temple, and that was the Theater District station. But that station has since been closed and demolished because the link is being extended further into Tacoma, going to the Stadium District and up to the Hilltop Districts. This will be great later when the line's extended, as the future Old City Hall stop is right across from the Elks Temple. What was odd getting off at Commerce Street station, where they kicked us off, is the train continued down Commerce Street and basically turned around at the future Old City Hall station, but that's not in passenger use at this point. So we had to walk about 10 minutes to get to the Elks Temple. We arrived at the Elks Temple about 11:40 in the morning. It was too early to check in, so we just waited around for the old hangout bar to open up in the first level of the Elks Temple to have a nice lunch. Now, we happened to be there during the Elks' birthday. This is when McMenamins does special things at any of their locations when that location is celebrating some sort of anniversary. Now, I had signed us up to take the Goat Garden tour that morning. It's one of those rare tours that McMenamins has. And our guides were Derek and Amanda. They were very informative tour guides and made the whole experience very much fun. The Tacoma Elks Lodge was first formed in 1890. It became the largest Elks club in the nation. So by 1915, they decided it was time to build a new building to house their huge membership. The building was built and opened in 1916. By 1965, the Elks decided it was time to move on, and so they closed that location and opened up a new location elsewhere in Tacoma. It was used as a restaurant and nightclubs, but by the 1980s it was basically abandoned. The McMenamins brothers, who love historic properties, acquired it, and in 2017 they started the renovations to bring the Elks Temple back to its former glory. It formally opened in 2019. After the tour, we were able to check into our room. We had a room with a small little veranda overlooking the Spanish Steps. Yes, the Spanish Steps are patterned after the famous steps in Rome. The purpose of the steps is Tacoma is a very hilly city, and down the lower level, that was kind of the business district. The Northern Pacific Railroad headquarters, as well as City Hall, was on the lower level, and then on the upper hill was Broadway, where all the commercial district was. Also, the streetcars were on Broadway, so the steps made it easy for those who needed to get to the streetcar to get to work down below the hill. For the rest of the afternoon, it was kind of rainy. My wife was a little tired, so I decided to go out a little bit geocaching around the neighborhood, walked around up to the Stadium District, saw the future line for the T-Link, but there are so many other things to do in Tacoma that especially once the T-Line is extended, it'll make it easier staying at McMenamins to see all there is to see in Tacoma. So one of the things you can do is take the T-Line to the Union Station stop. Now that is no longer a train station, it is actually a federal courthouse, but right next to it is the Washington State History Museum, which is a great history museum along with a big huge model railroad layout if you like trains. Also right there is a glass bridge over the railroad that takes you to the Tacoma Museum of Glass. It is a great museum that also has an active hot shop where they give glass blowing demonstrations on a regular basis. Also along the T-Line, but very easy walking distance, is the Brown and Haley factory store with yummy candies. Also the LeMay Car Museum nearby. The Tacoma Dome is also obviously nearby. And if you want to keep the trolley theme going, there's an old spaghetti factory right by the Commerce Street station. Once the T-Link extension moves, you're going to be able to easily get to the Stadium District and the Hilltop Districts with parks and lots more restaurants to choose from. Back at McMenamins, we had a pre-dinner cocktail at the Vault, which is one of those secret bars that McMenamins is famous for. This happens to be located underneath the sidewalk, but you have to figure out how to get to that bar. Dinner was at the main pub. It was very busy that day. Our reservations weren't until 8 p.m. because that was as soon as we could get a reservation. However, 2 seats opened up at the bar, so my wife and I sat at the bar for dinner, and we had a great time conversing with the fun bar staff there. There are other restaurants and bars to choose from. There's the Spanish Bar, which is located at the midpoint of the Spanish Steps, and it's famous for its tapas and its Mediterranean-inspired food. There's also Doc's Bar, which has pool tables and other games for you to enjoy. The Elks Temple also has a ballroom where they have concerts. There was a concert that evening. We didn't get tickets because we were just there to enjoy the venue as opposed to see a concert that night. So it was a fun day, and we decided to head back to the room and relax, and then go to sleep for the evening. The following day, we had breakfast at the main pub, which is McMenamins breakfasts are very good. But soon it was time to head back to the Amtrak station to head home. We did have to walk 10 minutes to the Commerce Street T-Line station. Next year though, it would only be 1 minute right across the street. We got to the Amtrak station about 25 minutes early. Got to see a Sounder train, which is the commuter rail for Seattle, which doesn't normally run on weekends, but since the Mariners were in town, they run baseball specials, which stop at Tacoma and take you straight to King Street Station, which is just a short walk to T-Mobile Ballpark. Soon the Amtrak Coast Starlight arrived on time to the Tacoma Dome station. We were assigned a seat, which was upstairs, and we able to sit back and relax as the train pulled out Tacoma. We did experience a delay when we arrived at Olympia Lacey because there was a passenger on board that was a bit unruly that had to be kicked off the train, but we had to wait for the sheriff's department to arrive to pick up the person that was being thrown off the train. But it only set us back by about 20 minutes, and we were on our way. We had dining car reservations for lunch because the Coast Starlight has a dining car, unlike the Cascades, which just has to have a cafe car. We walked down to the dining car and was promptly seated at 12:45, and we were offered a list of menu items to have for lunch. My wife and I were seated with one other person, a lady who was bound for Portland. It was a pretty yummy lunch and nice and relaxing, sitting in the dining car watching the world go by. The train had made up time after leaving Olympia late, so we arrived in Portland on time. The train had a 20-minute layover in Portland and left Portland on time to head south. We were running on time until just short of Salem when we had to pull off into the siding because we had to wait for the northbound Coast Starlight, which was running very late, heading to Seattle. But we only pulled into the Salem station about 5-10 minutes late. We got off the train, walked to our car, and then 5 minutes later we were home. Taking a train is definitely more relaxing than having to drive, especially up into the Puget Sound area, which is notorious for traffic. The added benefit is we could get up and go to the bathroom, get something to eat, all without having to stop. Yes, the train does take a little bit longer than driving, but when you count food breaks, bathroom breaks, the train is very comparable on time and definitely less stressful. And then once the T-Line is extended like it should be, it'll make our next trip to the Elks Temple that much better. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of Talkin' Transit, Tourist by Transit. Please do consider helping my channel grow by hitting that like button, making some comments, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell. So please let me know about trips that you have made where you didn't drive, where you just took the train or buses to get around a city. Until next time, please watch the closing doors, and I'll see you at the next station. Bye now.